my old hometown, where I was born, my father was a school teacher there at Wairoa College, and I went there and visited a couple of months ago on my sort of Eastern Coast tiki tour. Wairoa has been in the news again. Now, Wairoa was the subject of particular police action as a result of ongoing, and it would have seemed at the time, intractable gang activity as a result of between two, essentially, groups, Black Power and Mungal Mob. Now, I suspect that both of them are very much whānau aligned, both those groups in Wairoa, and that when we talk about their ongoing disputes, Utu plays a large role in it. Well, anyhow, the Wairoa Boxing Club were hoping to have, in fact had planned to have, they'd sold 500 tickets at $100 a head, one of those sort of corporate boxing nights, of which I have to say I've been a part. In fact, I've had my head bashed around by no less a person than Ken Mayer in Wanganui. So they had this boxing night all set up, and at the very last moment, hoping to raise about $20,000 as a fundraiser, the police stepped in yesterday, the day beforehand, and cancelled it, declined a permit for this fundraising fight night in the week leading up to this event. Police said they'd identified several people involved in the fight night with gang associations. They said that could lead to confrontational violence amongst supporters, and as a consequence, something that Wairoa was looking rather forward to. Obviously, I mean, you don't sell that many tickets without doing so in a small town like Wairoa, is now not going to have it. Joining us to talk about that and the situation as it stands today, from Wellington of all places, the Mayor of Wairoa, elected for a fifth term just last month. Craig Little joins us now. Craig, well done, mate. Fifth term. Can you not find a way out? Or is it you've just decided, bugger it, I like this place?
Oh, I think my wife tells me the way out will be divorced, mate, after 3 years, so we'll just see how that one goes.
Yeah, she doesn't want you around the
Yeah,
house, does she, eh? Listen,
yeah.
I feel very sorry for these people. That's an enormous amount of advertising to sell 500 tickets, $120 a head. They've obviously been planning for it for weeks, if not months, or months, I would think, and months. You support the police action. Why is that, mate?
Look. As soon as I heard, I rang the police and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And there might have been a couple of things the boxing club didn't do correctly as well. There's a little bit of gang activity that we don't really see in the community, but it is going on. And the police didn't have an entire list of who was going to be competing in the event. And at the end of the day, the welfare of the people is number one in Wairoa for the police, and they do a bloody good job. So I've just got to go along with them. It is really disappointing. I've been to those nights. They've been well run. They're not run by the gangs at all, but there is gang members involved.
But I mean, in Wairoa, I'm sorry, mate. I've been there now. It's almost impossible, and this is no insult. It's almost impossible to join anything, for God, from a church group to a local school fair, without there being a gang member involved. I mean, they're well involved and ingrained in your community, aren't they?
Oh, yes and no. A lot of organisations you wouldn't see a gang member ever, but I think the biggest thing is, and I think that's the attitude. As long as we support these people doing stuff that isn't good in our community, it'll just carry on. And I think the police have just had enough. And like the removal of the gang patches did help the crime rate. That's a fact. So I think, look, I just think it was the police aren't saying it can't happen. But what they're saying is we need to meet together, and I'm going to be involved in that with the gang leaders and go, well, if we carry on with the activity that's happening around, we can't have these events, especially when it's a fight night. Fight nights can probably, sort of
Yeah, no, I've been in
encourage a
them,
bit
mate.
of
People get
activity.
tanked. I have to say,
Yeah,
people get tanked, and
yeah,
they're really into the fights.
100%.
Yeah, no, I've been there. Yeah.
And
So
I
you,
went last year. They did have.
yeah, carry on. So, Craig.
Yeah, so I went to the last one they had, I think it's a couple of years ago, and it was a great night. But there was, gang people there. They behaved pretty well, to be quite honest. But look, please don't go and do something like this just to piss you off. Really, they do it for a reason. And this time, unfortunately, it's a real bugger to our boxing club because I know a lot of the boxers in there. They've trained hard. The girls have trained hard. and it's just a real bugger for them. But it's just the way it is at the moment, and the police just felt with the gang activity going on, and there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't know about, and that's the stuff that they've got to act on. And at the end of the day, if it got out of control, they would be the ones held accountable if
Yes,
someone got
in a
shot or
statement made earlier this week, Tairāwhiti Area Commander Inspector Danny Kirk said that the police were currently investigating 2 shootings, an aggravated robbery and an arson, alleged to have been committed by gang members in the previous month. I'd assumed, but only because there hasn't been too much media attention, that things had calmed down, but that would suggest that they continue to bubble. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a little bit happening. And look, I talked to the people, neighbours. They had a party that just went on and on and on. And they've come to see me, and they just don't want that in their neighbourhood. And then when you have shots and cars doing wheelies and things like that, and it's just got to stop. There's no regard for anybody's safety when they're discharging guns in public. I'm afraid it's not. And unfortunately, it's these guys that have stopped an event like this. Simple as that.
I don't see any, I mean, despite the police setting this up as a special operation, I think you and they got up to Gisborne as well as part of the special police operation with the special powers. I don't see that having any impact or diminishing gang activity based upon these facts. Have I got that right or wrong?
So what are you saying, that you don't think
Well,
that
it's just that
the gang
even
activities
though,
could be
yeah,
diminished?
yeah, I mean, even though the police have just
Yeah,
said, right, we're going in and we've got special powers now, we've declared a particular special police operation, I'm not seeing it have any impact upon the level of gang activity, at least from the reports that I'm reading at the moment, Craig.
yeah, you might be right, but from a mayor's point of view around the town and that, you're not seeing the gang members like you used to, and like it or not, people do not like gang patches. They get intimidated by them, so we don't see that part of it. But there's still a little something festering behind the scenes between the gang members. And the sad thing is, they're all related, and we
Mm,
all know
mm,
each other in
mm,
town. And it's just crazy that you think you can align yourself to whatever colour you're wearing on your back.
mm. Um, Actually, as I said, I was in Wairoa, had a look myself, went back to the whole time. You're right, there was no gang patches. It looked depressed, I have to say, Wairoa. Maybe it was the weather. It was in July after all. But it didn't look
Yeah.
dangerous. What's the general demeanour of the folk there? I was talking to some of the retailers and they say, oh, bloody hell, it's been grim. It's very grim. And then we just get belted by the weather occasionally. They're not very happy. So it obviously hasn't translated into blaming you, otherwise you wouldn't have been re-elected as the mayor. But they're a bit depressed at the moment. That's the impression I got, Craig.
Yeah. No, 100%. We've been through 2 massive weather events. I think a total of about 280 homes, yellow sticker, which means you can't live in them. We've had a lot of help from the government, but we've got long way to go. That time when you came to Wire, probably AFCO was down doing their maintenance, so there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of money around the community. Uh, you know, we, and I think you sort of get that across New Zealand, to be quite honest. And rural areas are pretty important, but it's just sometimes the government tends to underinvest in rural areas.
The last time I talked to you, you were dealing with the aftermath of the second weather event, which had flooded numerous homes and caused them to be uninhabitable. You were talking about taking legal action then against the negligence or neglect of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council, who had exacerbated that particular weather event. How far have you got with that?
Well, we've been a bit lucky because, in a way, there's been one class action that's already been notified, and it is apparently the insurance companies are looking at another one. So they're probably doing the work for us at the moment, because it's pretty sad when you go walking around town and walking around those homes. There's so many people who don't know what their future looks like, and their only hope is that these companies have taken the class actions, went against the regional council, and they've been told in public meetings that they will get compensated if they win.
So let me get this
So
right. The
that's why.
insurance companies are taking a class action on behalf of the people that presumably are insured to them, with them, against the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Have I got that right? That they've lodged those
That's
papers?
correct. That's it. So I'm not. I'm no. I'm no. I don't think they have yet, but I know it's on the way. They had public meetings, and they've said it's for the insured, but it's for the uninsured as well. So it's there's a bit to go yet. I believe they're in talks with the regional council. I'm not sure. We don't really
Mm,
hear much about that.
mm.
But there's another guy that's taken one on behalf of the limery, which lost millions and millions of dollars damage. It lives pretty close to the red mouth.
Yes.
So that one's
Now,
happening as we speak.
there has been also, I noticed at the recent elections in Hawke's Bay, a change in the leadership of the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. The chairperson actually only just held on, actually, in her own Napier seat, I see, and she has been replaced as chairman. She didn't want to be replaced either, I have to say. Have you noticed any change in attitude, or is it too early to tell yet from the Hawke's Bay Regional
Far
Council?
too early, far too early. And I noticed in the new chair's speech, Wairoa wasn't even mentioned. So that wouldn't make us that excited about the whole thing.
No.
And I just hope to get onto their basics and do the stuff when they're talking about, they want all the rivers clear when it rains. Well, that's never going to happen ever.
It's very interesting. So many people in Wairoa head north to Gisborne rather than down the Devil's Elbow. It was fascinating, I have to say. Never seen so many trucks between Wairoa and Napier. Incredible amount of logging trucks coming down that particular road. But the other thing is that I've often wondered if your future is not so much down south into Napier and Hawke's Bay, but further north into Gisborne, where you've got an easier road link and presumably a lot of your people retail. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. We're talking about that. With our three waters, we went alone, and we're going to do a sort of bit of an agreement with Gisborne. We've got very similarities with a lot of things, but you've got a Portuguese, you've got Whakatane over the hill, and
Mm.
we're very very similar communities, and sometimes we just feel Hawke's Bay doesn't really get us, doesn't understand Wairoa, and that's all organised, whether it's health, you have the DHB, or whether it's a regional council. It's so many things, they've got all these agencies, that recovery agencies, the economic development agencies, and we just feel we put money in, but we could probably do a lot better ourselves if we just did
Yeah,
it
no, no, no.
ourselves.
It's been a common refrain, I have to say. Listen, and
Yeah.
finally, you just mentioned water. A number of councils are getting declined, a number of them getting accepted, I have to say, throughout the country for the way in which they organise water in the future. You said you wanted to go alone. Have you been told no, you can't?
No, we haven't. We had a deadline of the 7th of November to lodge our application, which we've done. We're just awaiting DIA, but unfortunately, DIA staff changed quite a bit. But the guys you deal with originally aren't always the ones that you deal with again, so it makes it very hard. So we believe going alone has a lot more savings to the community than actually going as a regional entity.
So but if you are declined, you would see yourselves joining in with Gisborne as the more likely scenario. Is that what you're saying?
We'd be certainly in talks with Gisborne, and we'd have to go back to Hawke's Bay as well. But so there's a bit to go yet. But we did our homework before. We were told by the Minister, Simon Watts, and a few DIA officials, once we'd given them facts and figures, they were quite confident that we could do it. We've done a lot of work on our water, and so we're sort of a little bit ahead of the eight ball. So we can defer a lot of things, that don't have to be done tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Craig, best of luck to you. Nice to talk to you again. Again,
Joel.
congratulations. And I hope things come right for you, mate. You've been through an awful lot.
Yeah, we just think you don't need, idiots in the community stopping events like this. And unfortunately, that's what it was. And, I have great respect for the police. Michael, I
Okay,
really do.
well, I'm sure you'd make an exception for the leadership, but there you go. Thanks, Craig. Nice to
Yeah,
have a
no,
talk
well,
to you.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
well,
Good.
yeah,
Okay.
okay. Thank you. As